Hey engineers, in the last video we talked about Gemini's API structured output feature, which is a feature that allows LLMs to provide predictable output. And in this video we'll be taking a look at file upload APIs, which allows you to upload files to Gemini, which you could then use in prompting, generation, or even caching for your later use. Let's dive into the video. Hey guys, like I said, we'll be covering file uploads. And in my opinion, file uploads is one of the ways in which Google has differentiated Gemini as one of the top models out there among model providers, because through file uploads you could achieve even larger context windows in your prompting, such as your text prompting, your image generations, your context caching, and even in batching workflows, because now you could upload files once and reference those files in all the workflows that you want to use Gemini for. Let me show you how to do this. So as usual, if you've been following this tutorial, you know we need access to Gemini's API key, and you can provision one directly from the notebook. All you just need to do is enable this, and also you will need drive access if you are working with the resources I've provided in this series, right? All you just need to do is mount the drive access. And as usual, all the resources that this series has been based off is based off the Gemini documentation that can be found in this link, and also the Gemini cookbook, which is just a collection of other techniques that other developers are interacting with Gemini. So for outline, we'll be covering why file uploads exist in the Gemini API and the problems they solve. We'll be covering the storage limits, the access rules and the cost, best practices and pitfalls when working with file uploads, how to upload files step by step using the Python SDK, how to upload files in prompts so the models can consume them. If you've worked with AI models a lot through the APIs or even interacting with them through chat interfaces, you will know that one of the problems with models is that once the context gets too large, it becomes a problem. But I believe that Google has solved this problem, or is trying to solve this problem, through file uploads. So why would you use file uploads? Well, one, you will use file uploads because there is limit with text prompting. With file uploads, you could upload different media types and reference those media types in your generation workflows. But right now, without file uploads, you'll only be able to reference the generation workflows with only text. Also, file uploads encourage reusability. They ensure that you can scale your AI generation workflows or your AI interaction workflows. They support multimodality, which is a feature in Gemini that supports different types that you can use to interact with Gemini. And they are also the building blocks of caching, which we'll cover in later videos. Storage limits, access, and cost. The file upload comes with important constraints that you must know. There is a per file maximum size of 2 gigabytes. There is a per project limit of 20 gigabytes in total storage used, and the retention is about 48 hours, and then they're automatically deleted. And any file you upload can be referenced by the API during that period, but you can't download those files. For cost, it is completely free to use file upload, as at the time I'm recording this video, that should basically cover all the limitations and constraints. And why does this matter to you? Well, don't rely on Gemini as a long-term file store, because Gemini retains the data for just 48 hours and you can only use it in your generation workflows. You should ensure you keep your own copies. You should also plan for re-uploads if your workflow spans more than 48 hours. Say you're doing some work with Gemini that exceeds 48 hours, then you should ensure that in the logic of processing of these jobs or this work, you are ensuring that after 48 hours, you are re-uploading those files so Gemini could use it. Although there is a better way with caching, which we'll cover in later videos. And because the cost is free, it means you can also use experimental modes in your workflows. Now, as usual, if you've been following along, you will know our first step is to set up, and you would run this. All I just do here is I retrieve the Google API key that we already gave the notebook access to. We create a client here, and for the model ID, we'll be using the Gemini 2.5 Flash. And for the image we'll be working with our favorite cat image that we've seen in other tutorials, and we can see it's just the image of the cat. And what we'll do here is, using the files.upload interface, we will specify the file part of the file and upload it to Gemini. And once that is complete, we will get a file name and also the URI, which we are printing here. And it says here the file name is A7 this and the URI is this. if you try to access this, you won't be able to access this because it's only specific to Gemini. Now, once you've uploaded the file, how do you retrieve it? Well, using the get API and passing the name of the file, you can then retrieve the file that you've already uploaded. Now, let's look at how you would use the uploaded files in your workflows. So here we have a text generation workflow that we tell Gemini to describe the action of the animal in the image, and all we just need to do is in the content array, we pass the file that we've already uploaded to Gemini, and that should basically create a generation workflow where Gemini uses the file that has already been uploaded. And here we see here that it gives a very good description. The animal in the image, a ginger and white cat, is actively engaged in self-grooming, and as we can see, that is what our favorite cat is doing. So you've already uploaded files. How do you delete the files once you're done with your workflow? Very simple. All you just need to do is call the delete API, pass the name of the file, and that would ensure that the file is deleted from Gemini. Why would you want to do this even if file uploads are free? Well, because there is a per project limit of 20 gigabytes, and if you have a generation workflow where you upload large files multiple times, it is always useful to delete these files so that you free up the storage for your project. Other types of files. You can also upload an MD file. This is just a guideline where I basically specify a text that contains how I would expect Gemini to speak. And if you've been following along, you will know I'm a big Ted Lasso fan. And so this basically contains how Ted Lasso will speak, just an outline of how I expect Ted Lasso to speak. And then here we're using that file in a text generation workflow where I tell you to write a 300-word article about total football based on this writing guideline. And as you can see when we run this, Gemini generates a 300-word article based on the outline, and it generates it in a Ted Lasso voice or tone. Right. Best practices and pitfalls. You know, I love you guys so much. I don't want you to fall into traps of falling into. First one, chunk large documents. Split big PDFs into smaller files for better reasoning. Yes, Gemini has a very huge context window, but it's always easier and it's always better when the files are smaller, and then Gemini can then generate better response and output because the context is very small. You should also ensure that you cache file IDs. You should save them locally so you don't have to re-upload unnecessarily. This is very useful when you know that you would always want to reference those files in 48 hours instead of having to re-upload those files every time. Once you've uploaded the files, save them in a temporary or permanent storage. Say you have a Postgres DB, save those IDs in a DB, and then for your reusable workflows, you can reference the IDs that you've saved instead of having to re-upload them. You should also respect min types and don't rename files incorrectly because Gemini uses metadata for passing. So your file name, your file metadata are very important. And you should also watch latency, as uploading has overhead when you're doing your generation or your AI interaction workflows, and inline short snippets might be better if you don't have any need for uploading files. We've covered inline uploads or inline reference where you don't need to upload the files to any API. You can just reference the inline files directly to Gemini from your notebook or your code. Now, for recap, we've covered why file uploads exist in Gemini. We've covered how to do this step by step. We've covered the storage rules where we have 2 gigabytes per file storage limit and a 20 gigabyte per project limit, and also a 48-hour retention. And don't forget, it's free to use. Thank you so much, Google, for that. We've covered best practices like chunking, caching, and also ensuring that you're respecting the min types. And we've also covered how to use the file IDs in your prompting workflows for combined context and instructions. If you've made it to the end of this tutorial, thank you so much. You can show me love by liking this video, sharing it, and subscribing. If there's anything you didn't understand, please leave a comment. I would explain and I'll try my best. I'll see you in the next video. Stay tuned.